Good morning, everyone. I am Yoruba Butler, and I serve as the Strategy Director for Post-Secondary Access at Alabama Possible. Welcome to our Charting Career Pathways webinar. Let's get started. We'd like to recognize and thank our sponsors for supporting this work and making this webinar possible. Without their support, Alabama Possible would not be able to provide the assistance that we do without a participation fee. The Alabama Goes to College campaign works closely with several partners to implement the initiatives that we're going to discuss today. Thank you to our great partners, Alabama Commission on Higher Education, Alabama Community College System, Alabama State Department of Education, and Get Educated, the Common Black College application that helps promote applying and enrolling students at 65 historically Black colleges and universities. A few housekeeping notes. Before we get started, please keep your microphones on mute at all times to avoid any feedback during the presentation. This webinar will be recorded and posted to youtube.com/Alabama Possible should you want to revisit any of this content. You can submit questions throughout the webinar using the chat feature. We will collect those questions and answer them towards the end of the presentation. In addition, we have poll questions throughout the webinar, which are designed to get your real-time feedback. We'd love it if everyone would participate in these poll questions. This portion of the webinar is especially important if you are a high school educator. It is imperative that you stay through the end of the webinar because there will be poll questions at the very end as well. By doing this, it is the only way you will be eligible to receive professional development credit. Answering the poll questions will not be time consuming, as we understand that you are exceptionally busy this time of the year. We hope this lessens the burden by having to complete a separate survey after the webinar. And for our social workers, we will have a QR code at the end of the webinar that will provide you with the opportunity to earn 1 contact hour of general education once you have scanned the QR code and submitting the information required. Please contact us by emailing algoestocollege@alabamapossible.org, and we will email you your CE contact verification form. Educators, please share your efforts using the various platforms of social media as you continue to build a college-going culture within your community. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and X, previously known as Twitter. We also encourage you to use the following hashtags when promoting your efforts. Now, if you've logged in a little bit late, we want to make sure you're able to register your school for Alabama Goes to College campaign. High schools can sign up at alabamapossible.org/register 2023-24. We'll drop this link in the chat now. On the registration form, all schools are listed alphabetically. So there is a way for you to check and see if your school is already registered. We only need 1 submission per school. Now, there are 3 main components of Alabama Goes to College. First is our Cash for College. The Cash for College's goal is for every graduating senior to complete the FAFSA, which is the free application for federal student aid before they graduate from high school, so that they can access federal, state, and institutional aid to pay for education after high school. Our second is the Alabama College Application Campaign. The Alabama College Application Campaign is part of a national effort to increase the number of first-generation college students and students from low-income families pursuing a college degree or other higher education credential. The primary goal of this effort is to help high school seniors navigate the complex college application and admissions process, and to ensure they apply to at least one post-secondary institution. Our third component is our College and Career Decision Day. College and Career Decision Day celebrates students committing to pursue their education past high school, whether to obtain a 2-year, a 4-year degree, a certificate, or industry recognized credential, entering the military, or pursuing a skilled trade. Now, to get started with our conversation about career pathways, let's take a moment to review Alabama Career Development Model, which was introduced by the State Department of Education in October of 2022. This model provides targets by grade level as early as elementary school, as well as suggested instructional strategies to meet those targets. I thought we would ground today's conversation in the targets for grades 11 and 12. You can access these targets and the strategies at the link provided in these slides. The presentation will be sent to you in our follow-up email. The first target is to continue to engage students and parents in the 16 career clusters. And just to give you an example of some of the clusters, you have business management and administration, human services, agriculture, food, and natural resources, in addition to government and public administration, just to name a few. Our second target is to continue to build career pathways through academic subject matter and leadership experiences. The third target is to continue to build knowledge about careers, education, and employment opportunities. Target 4 is to engage students and families in out-of-school activities to support career preparation. Target 5 is to update and utilize career planning assessments to finalize post-graduation plans. Target 6 is to assist students in course planning and continuing to acquire knowledge about careers, education, and employment opportunities. And the last target, Target 7, is the final review of updates to the personal educational plan of study to meet the student's current career and educational goals or interests. Now, let's look at our first poll question. The first poll question is, for which target have you had the most success?
All right, perfect. We've had everyone respond, and our highest percentage is for target 6. 47% of people say they have had the most success with assisting students in course planning and continuing to acquire knowledge about careers, education, and employment opportunities. The next highest one was target number 3, which is continue to build knowledge about careers, education, and employment opportunities. So we appreciate y'all's responses. I'm going to go ahead and end that poll now and then proceed on to our next slide.
All right, thank you, May. The goals set in 2018 require inclusion of all Alabamians in the benefits of the Success Plus transformation, education, and workforce development initiatives. This includes engaging populations with low labor force participation and barriers to work. Individuals in these groups may require targeted support to access Alabama's pathways to post-secondary education and careers. Knowing this, it is important to address most current data that is available regarding Alabama's attainment of credentials for the ages ranging from 16 to 24. According to the reporting of the Alabama's Success Plus Attainment Goal Progress from 2018 to 2021, it is reported that Alabama has 137,848 residents that have attained some form of post-secondary experience. When looking at the breakdown of those numbers, there are 89,413 people who have either an associate's or a bachelor's degree. 29,748 people have an industry certification. 17,926 have at least a certificate. And 419 people have a professional license, and 342 have participated in an apprenticeship. Now, it is my honor. I'm really excited to introduce our guest speaker, Julie Cornegay. Julie joined EBSCO in 2024 as the Alabama Talent Triad's Director of Engagement. In this role, she interacts with key stakeholders, including state agencies, partners, community leaders, industry, and educators to raise awareness about the students' workforce development initiatives and the benefits of skills-based hiring. In 2021, she was appointed to the Alabama Workforce Development Board. She currently serves on the Alabama Department of Education's Career and Technical Education's Work-Based Learning Advisory Council. She holds a leadership role in the Alabama Committee on Credentialing and Career Pathways and Technical Advisory Council as the Finance Technical Advisory Committee's officer. Julie, it's all yours.
Well, thank you so much for having me today. And I apologize for sending that lengthy resume or bio to you because I certainly didn't intend for you to read all of that, but I appreciate it. This is an area of passion for me. I really enjoy working in the workforce development space, and it just feels like home. A lot of times I recognize some names on the list of people participating today, and I want to thank you all for joining us. As mentioned, my name is Julie Cornegay. I am the Director of Engagement for the Alabama Talent Triad. You can go ahead and next slide, please. This is a new role for me. I have been in this role for about 2 months. Prior to this, I worked with the Federal Reserve Bank of Atlanta Birmingham branch in our community and economic development department. So been working with, trying to increase the level of education and training and career pathway options for people in Alabama. So one of the things that I wanted, and this is crazy how well coordinated this was. So we have some overlapping slides here, but so there's 2 specific workforce development initiatives that we're going to touch on today. The first is Governor Ivey's initiative for 500,000 highly skilled workers in the state of Alabama by 2025. And the second is to surpass the national labor force participation rate by that time as well. So we currently have 214,725 estimated new credential earners since 2018. And, we're excited about that because we feel like we are well on track to meet the goals as they've been set. Right, so go to slide 4. And I wanted to just give you a little information about labor force participation rate and what that means for our state. And so if we think about our labor force participation rate, essentially what we're doing is calculating the number of people who are employed in the state by those seeking employment in total working age population. And that gives us a better sense of the labor force that's available. We keep hearing that the unemployment rate is at an all-time low. Well, that's fantastic. But what we need to do is get more people in the labor force, because as you can see, and I'm going to move some things around on my screen so I can actually see that. And I thought this was interesting. I love data and charts. So you just have to give me a second here. But so in May of 2023, when I put this deck together initially, Alabama's labor force participation rate was 56.9%, and the US participation rate was 62.6%. But since then, January's data came in and Alabama is at 57.4%, and we see the US labor force participation rate tick down just a tad to 62.5. So you can see that Alabama has been getting people back to work and back into the labor force, which is wonderful news as far as I'm concerned. And The other piece of this is, and thank you for advancing the slide. So for every 1 percentage point increase in our labor force participation rate, that's an additional 23,000 people that come into the labor force. I want you to just think about that for a second. 23,000 people are contributing to the tax base, are contributing to the dollars that go into whether it's education funds or roads or whatever the tax, spending money. There's just such a really amazing ripple effect when we bring these people into the workforce. I have a poll question for you, and it's super low tech, so don't, if you have your chat open, I'm curious to know, on a scale of 1 to 5, where 1 is I've never heard of it. And I'm trying to figure out how much you know about the Alabama Talent Triad. So 1 is I've never heard of it. 3 is I've heard of it, but I'm not sure that how this impacts me. And then 5 is I could do this webinar. I don't have to sit and listen. Go ahead and put into the chat how comfortable you are or how much you know about the triad. All right, I see some of these coming in. So mostly sort of low scores, which helps me gauge how we want to progress. All right, then I'm also going to include my email. So if I say something or if something clicks and you want to follow up with me, you can go ahead and start that email now, and then just put your notes in that email, and we can and you can follow up with me after the webinar and after you finish your survey, right? So, all right. So as we progress through here, let's see. All right. Sorry, I'm just trying to get back. All right, so to help facilitate the attainment goals that Governor Ivey had put in place, we've created a new software, a new digital data tools that allow us to do 3 specific things. 1, it helps us create learning and employment records for students so that they can include their information into the system. The second thing is really, and I'll touch on this in a moment, but the credential registry, which allows us to create transparency around the credentials of value that we have here in Alabama that are important for the in-demand occupations. And then the third thing, the third wheel, so to speak, of the triad is the skills-based job description generator. And that's what we are using with employers. We're taking their occupational job descriptions and we're putting them into the triad, but we're converting them to skills-based. All right. So next slide. So the work in this space has not been done before, which, it's exciting to think that Alabama is leading the way. We're getting a lot of attention for this work, and I'm just really excited to be a part of it. Right, so my slide 8, the first piece, next slide, please. So the first piece of the triad is the credential registry. And this is the critical piece of the puzzle, because without understanding the skills and competencies within the credentials, it's impossible to match what employers are looking for with the skills and competencies job seekers have. So I've heard the expression, I'm not sure if you guys have, but the Wild West of credentials. Well, what does that mean? I have an opportunity to talk with a lot of different employers, and I've had one employer tell me, I can't find anyone to fill my industrial maintenance roles. I'm like, okay, well, then you talk with, maybe the community colleges or a different awarding body, and they'll say, we've got this mechatronics course. Well, apparently these have very similar skills, but we're not necessarily communicating clearly that we have these credentials that uh, translate into these other occupations. So I asked the employer, I was like, well, have you reached out or have you seen if anybody has a mechatronic certification? That could be a really good fit for you. He'd never heard of it before. So what we're doing with the credential registry is we're taking all of the skills and competencies found within those credentials and we're breaking them out into skills. So employers can look at them and say, this is a really strong fit for the occupation or the job that I'm looking to fill. All right, next slide, please. And this was made possible through the Equality and Transparency Act that passed in 2023. It was made apparent that we needed to really be able to find and tease out the in-demand, the credentials that were found of value that fit with the in-demand occupations, or the ones that lead to a self well, let me back up. We see a huge potential of growth moving forward, as well as they pay a wage that is a high wage in the state of Alabama. All right, let's move on to the next slide. So the credential registry includes degree and non-degree credentials that are issued statewide, and they're broken down into those skills assertions, or what we've been calling the DNA for in-demand occupations. And in this way, it really supports these stackable learning pathways and making all learning count. And that's really what I keep coming back to is we're lifelong learners. We just don't graduate from high school or graduate from college. And it's like, okay, I've learned everything I need to know, nothing left to learn. We're constantly having to update our skills, learn more, and stay relevant in the workforce. So with that, we're going to move on to the skills-based job description generator. And I've mentioned that a little bit, but next slide, please. So employers can take their current job descriptions and reformat them by clicking on the credentials required or the skills they reference in their current job descriptions. And so it only takes a few minutes to create the employer portal. And so all they do is they go in and they put information about their company in there so that there's a brief overview of what their corporate identity is. And then they can list their jobs. And so this only takes a few minutes, and we're always happy to work with the employers, especially as we build awareness about this program and how we can make this an easier lift for our small businesses that may not have an HR professional that they have on staff, or even our larger industries that have a whole team of HR professionals and they just need help maybe getting that the transition and the formatting down. All right, so next slide. This takes us to our next low-tech poll question I have for you. And so how many of you guys work with employers or help your students find internships, co-op opportunities, or summer jobs? Okay, I see one hand. I can't see all of them. So if there's anybody else, I would find it interesting to know approximately how many people have that. Okay, cool. Yeah, so I've heard in the past when I've worked with our CTE folks that a lot of what some of them do are trying to match up students for job shadowing day, try to match up students for co-op opportunities or their internships or summer jobs or some type of experience that they're looking to gain. And it's my understanding that it can take a lot of time to do this and to be the mediator between the employer and the student and try to make good fits. And that's one of the things that I really am excited about with the talent triad is that we can do a lot of that heavy lifting for you. And so we can, if we, one of my thoughts and something that I'd like to do as we roll this out is work with employers to get their current internship opportunities, to pull in their co-ops, summer programs, and let us build those opportunities in the triad. And then we could work with you all and get a learning and employment record set up for the students, and then try to help develop these crosswalks for the students and the employers to start getting used to using this component of the triad. All right. And if you're interested in that type of project or opportunity, if you have a situation where you're going to have to start matching your employers and your students, please reach out to me. I put my email in the chat, and we can make a time to pull everybody together and have a conversation about how we can help you with that. Oh, I see. The triad sounds like a great help for schools. Yes, it is. It's designed, and we need your help. So I'm going to get there. So, what one of the great things about the talent triad and making all learning count is that each Alabamian receives a digital wallet that they receive for free and can keep throughout their lifetime of work or through their retirement. And this is essential. And I feel like, gosh, I wish I would have had this when I was starting high school, or my work journey, because one of the things I hear when I've worked with the students and student orgs in the past is that the students complain that they don't have any experience to put on their resume, or that they just don't have they don't know what to, or how to fill those blank spaces of, oh, that intimidated blank space. Well, as we get students enrolled and engaged with the triad, we're able to integrate their skills, credentials, and experiences. And those are things that haven't always, translated on a typical resume. Also, this is digital. So as they fill in, or what we're going to call syncing, their learning and employment record, all of that auto populates. So it's making this much more able to customize for each specific job they're applying for. It will also recommend jobs. And so that's when we think about skills based, and I'll reflect. I've been told I overshare sometimes, but that's all right. So I thought at one point I might want to go into medicine, and I took, and not a doctor, but just some role in medicine. So I took some classes on terminology and learning all of this stuff. But then I realized that I did not handle the side of blood very well. Like, this is just a non-starter for me. And so I realized that I had this knowledge about medical terminology, that I have this roadblock of actually being part of the hands-on, so to speak, working with everyday, say, cases. But wow, wouldn't it have been really empowering if I would have been able to put my skills into a tool like this, and it would have showed me all of the different other jobs, like say insurance. So I could take that medical terminology experience, maybe work for an insurance company in coding or something like that. So what the really exciting thing that this is going to be able to do is visualize those crosswalks of what skills you have and what other industries they translate into. Then it will also recommend learning. So if it sees that you have all of these great skills, but you might need a phlebotomy class, and if you take this phlebotomy class, and you will qualify for all of these different other jobs that might be a really strong fit for you. Then it really, in my perspective, it's going to help with recruiting and retention into some of these fields that we may not have otherwise had the transparency to see the skills and how they apply. So there's also a note on here that it captures more of your final transcript and degrees to help demonstrate all of the skills and competencies. I've always really struggled with your transcript. It's such a black and white picture of the full color experience of what your learning journey is. And so I feel like the talent triad is going to really help create and help paint that picture. All right, next slide, please. All right, so you might be asking or thinking to yourself, this sounds too good to be true. Well, it has a few, it's not, it's a thing, but there's two things I want to mention really fast. There's two ways to include or classify your skills. So verified skills are going to be ones that we can pull in or import from what we're calling our verified or the source of truth. So we're working currently with PowerSchool as well as Canvas and a few other of the institutions that our state education folks are working with so that we don't have to key or physically add each of these completed competencies. So, and those will come across as verified. They're going to be the ones that have a green check by them that are that they're verified by the school that these competencies and credentials have been earned. There's also a self-attested option. And so what I typically describe as self-attested might be your student or someone takes a CPR class and they earn a certificate. That's not going to show up in PowerSchool. That's not going to show up in Canvas. But you can go in and upload your certificate, and it would be a credential that is self-attested by the learner. And eventually, you know, as we build out the triad, this is just really, again, reflect back. This has not been done before. So as we develop this this software, as we develop the systems, we hope to work with other credentialing bodies that we find, you know, we hear like, oh, well, we need to get the Red Cross in here so they can do this. Or maybe PowerSchool needs to get with Red Cross so that they can import those into PowerSchool. So those are the conversations, just letting you guys know, like, that's where we are with trying to verify credentials. And then also the ability to self-attest. And then that would be something that the learner and the employer would have a conversation about, like, okay, well, do you have the certificate? Or, you know, how can you prove to me that you've completed this certification? All right, perfect timing. Thank you. I wanted to take a minute to differentiate between credentials, skills, and experiences, because as I've been talking with folks in labor, commerce, AIDT, education, CTE, I mean, these conversations are going on. It's not dissimilar to the conversations we had with the Office of Apprenticeship and work-based learning versus on-the-job training versus you know, all of the different the lingo that we have to come across and then make sure that we're all speaking in the same language. So credential is, you know, we're defining it as something that's validated. And an example of that is going to be like the CNA certification. A skill is learning how to take blood pressure. That's a component of that CNA certification. And then experience. So that's that job shadowing opportunity. That is, you know, if you're in a LPN or an RN program, that's going to be that clinical rotation that you have. It's not a clinical rotation isn't a skill, it's exposure. And so being able to differentiate between those, but showing how all of these stack together and lead toward that that end credential that we're working towards. All right, so next slide, please. All right, so the benefits of adopting the Alabama Talent Triad, and again, this is a no-brainer for me. It makes all learning count. When we think about student organizations like okay, I'm not going to call my favorites, but I have an affinity for FBLA and DECA. I just think there's lots of them, but I've worked closely for years with FBLA and DECA. And I know that some of the challenges and really the areas where they excel are providing leadership opportunities for students, as well as opportunities for competitions and practicing. And really, the state has phenomenal success in national and regional competitions, and they win. So where do those learning opportunities show up on your transcript? Well, they don't a lot of times, or most of the time. They're things that are experiences, and with the talent triad, we can capture those. Also, those co-op and internships, employers can see, and they can see these experiences. If you've got a student that has been killing it in public speaking competitions, that might be a really good fit for someone who has a customer service position available. But they can see how these students have had this ability to shine. And then again, we can make, the employers can search for these students and look for opportunities. All right. And then again, the mock interviews and resumes, I have participated in those many, many times. And I always love to see the students show up and they're dressed and they look great and they're nervous. They practiced, but they're really, taking it very seriously. And by going through the opportunity to do that digital resume, which is a component of the learning and employment record, it's going to allow them to actually see the skills that they have developed as they have progressed through their learning experience in their high school environment. And that's going to allow them to be even more confident when they're talking about those. It could be a great way to prep them for the mock interviews, is thinking through those skills that they've acquired in their resume. Again, the recommended learning, in having that identify additional pathways, I really feel like too, it's going to inform the programs that we offer. So if we see that we have employers that are saying, I can't find anybody that has this credential, and I'm going to throw it out there, data visualization, data analysis. Well, okay, maybe we should start integrating that earlier into the high school curriculum. Where are good natural places where we could take advantage of that, so that we're meeting the needs of the talent pipeline and we're meeting employers' needs in the high school setting, so that they have a really good fit for when they're looking for those roles. And we'll know sooner, right? Because we'll have these ways that we receive notifications when they're telling us what skill sets they're looking for. And then I think I've mentioned this already, but as a retention tool. And, I worry, and this is my workforce development hat I've got on, that, it wasn't too long ago where we learned through a Dallas Federal Reserve Bank survey that in 2019, the state of Alabama had the highest rate of disconnected youth in the country. So what does that mean? Students or youth in the age of 18 to 24 were not in school or working. And we have to, now I will say it's improved. We have seen a constant improvement, and I have a theory that it's dual enrollment that's helped with that retention. But I feel like that the talent triad is also another really great retention tool, because it's going to provide that transparency on the student's progress, and also allow them to visualize or see how feasible attaining that next competency or that next job or the career pathway that they're on. It shows them how really close they are and why persevering is important. All right, next slide. All right, so here we are, timelines and upcoming milestones. February 2024, we have been working with and Ben's on, he's one of our amazing career coaches, to do a usability study with the students, and they were CTE students in healthcare, or health science, I should say, in manufacturing. And we were so excited to get their feedback. We've got some milestones that we need to hit from updates. And, I would say it's not, without looking at my notes, there were 3 areas that we need to focus on. One, again, is that making sure that the language that we're speaking is consistent. 2, that we make sure that the buttons are easily where they can find them, and then making sure that we get all of these pieces and have them flow very, very easily. So we've none of this was new news. We know that when you roll out a new product, we've got uh, certain evolutions and iterations that you work through, and we're really excited about the progress we've made. So we're, that's coming soon. And then spring 2024, this is where we are right now in March. This is the part of the awareness campaign and speaking with you guys. And we're integrating in those recommendations. And then that gears us up for training. So we've built the awareness, we've done the usability, we've implemented the recommendations. And then in spring, early summer, we start training so that in the fall we can hit the ground running with our rollout. And this is I'm going to be very careful. We are talking, and we've been trying to communicate this. Again, we're in the awareness campaign area, but we're setting up meetings now to meet with administrators like the superintendents, like your CTE directors, principals. So we want to make sure that they have a good sense of what this looks like, the benefits for the students, for their employers locally. So we have not had a lot of those conversations yet. So if you guys go run into everybody, and I don't want to upset anyone, but we are trying to have those conversations right now. But we wanted to let you know this was a great opportunity. When Alabama Possible reached out, I just couldn't say no. And I wanted to make sure that the career coaches and other folks, counselors, and people that are going to be working with students had the best information as is in a timely manner. But we're excited about the fall 2024 rollout. And the strategy currently is that the full rollout will be with with the career exploration course. And I believe that depends on school systems, but we're looking at 8th or 9th grade. But we also want to start rolling this out to the seniors. We don't want them to not have an opportunity to immerse in this. And we're still fleshing that out. But then I'm also working with other groups where it makes sense to get early adopters in the program. So if you're hearing this presentation and you want to be an early adopter, I am absolutely agreeable to come out to work with you guys, work with your employers. Like I mentioned earlier, you've got my email. And let's get your employer pool. Let's get your students that you typically have to line up. Let's get all of this automated so it's a lighter lift for you all. And we're absolutely ready to help and assist with this project. And honestly, as a benefit to us, it helps us see if we have any, what I'll call pain points in a rollout before we hit that larger rollout. So I'm not going to call you a guinea pig, but we sure would love you as someone to help us test out before we scale in that way. And I think that's my last slide, but is there one more? Yes. Okay. So to wrap it up, the built-in benefits for employers, job seekers, and students, again, breaking down that friction in the talent pipeline by identifying in process of completing a relevant credential before they've completed it, which, I think that's fantastic. Matching candidates on skills from potentially unknown sectors or industries. It's really, I've been doing a lot of research in this area. One of the things that's not in this presentation, but we don't collect a lot of really good data on skills and competencies and, where these intersections are. And so that's another thing I'm hoping that we can do with the talent triad is collect more data on how we can create these these matches more easily. And then, my favorite again is making all learning count and doing that through credentials, experiences, and skills. Supporting candidate placements at every level of the organization. And I always think about, people that have been with an employer for a long time and they started at one point, but, the employer may not have a clear sense of how much internal training that candidate or that person has done. They may be a really good candidate for another role within that same institution, but there's no transparency regarding how much training they've done and how close of a fit they are to what they're advertising or looking externally for. So I'm hoping that that's an opportunity as well to move people along a career pathway. And then that verified versus self-attested skills and credentials. And, we talked about that, but, that in a lot of ways could be a game changer for folks at what we call middle skill, people that have more than a high school diploma, but less than a college degree. So really being able to go with the middle skill workers and, be able to verify and attest their learning and apply it in our workforce development ecosystem is a real win-win for employers, for job seekers, for learners, for educators, for higher education. Really, it's an important step forward. And that's why the Alabama Talent Triad is a game changer. And that's why people are watching us. Does anybody have any questions?
Well, Julie, thank you so much. We do have one from Bianca Johnson. She said, when will Triad reach school systems?
So in the fall, that's part of our rollout plan, is that the Alabama Talent Triad is currently slated to roll out to the career exploration course takers in the fall. We will also be working with the CTE programs in the fall. And I had mentioned the seniors. So, it's still firming up, but I will say look for us in the fall.
All right, excellent. Julie, thank you so much for your time and your expertise. This was awesome. And I really appreciate the question, Bianca. We're gonna go ahead and move forward to our survey. All right, thank you, May. So yes, again, thank you for your feedback. For our high school educators to claim their professional development credit, you must visit this link to enter the following course numbers and the section number. And so the course number for this webinar is 309-514, and the section number is 497014. And again, you'll have the link and the course and section information when you receive the follow-up email with the PDF. And we will make sure that we share this information with you. And for our social workers, please make sure to scan the QR code so that you can earn your 1 contact hour of general education. And as mentioned earlier, if you are in need of the CE contact verification form, please email us at algoestocollege@alabamapossible.org. Now, we have some great events coming up, and we're asking that you save the date. We will be hosting our last community conversation for this year on Tuesday, April 2nd at noon, and the topic will be redefining what college is. Then on April 10th, and we're so excited about this, from 9 a.m. until 2 p.m., we'll be hosting our 4th annual virtual Alabama Can Spring Conference, which is entitled Forging Forward, Enhancing Post-Secondary Attainment to Fulfill Workforce Needs. The presentations will encompass a variety of topics, including post-secondary access and readiness, connecting college and career success, student success and post-secondary education, diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, and policy advocacy and collective impact. You may go to our events page to register for this now. It's already open. And then on Wednesday, April 17th, from 10:30 until 11:30, we'll be hosting our College and Career Decision Day. And then also, we're asking that you stay tuned for additional information regarding our Celebration Day and professional development, which will be on June 5th. Now, as far as resources, as a participant, as we shared, you will receive a PDF version of this presentation. But we want to make sure that you realize that in our shared drive, that the items in the shared drive, if you would please not change them, but download them before you make your edits. And we do have these two resources, which are fantastic. We have the Educator's Handbook along with the Student and Family Guidebook, which we encourage you to share with your colleagues and your students. And I'm not sure how many of you all saw in our newsletter for the 6th for Get Schooled, and please share this Get Schooled resources with your students and colleagues. Get Schooled has more than thousands of scholarships listed, but they also assist with resume templates, college essay reviews, and interactive activities, etc. This is a great resource for our students to use to apply for additional scholarships as they await their finalized financial aid award letters. And then with our help desk, we are here to assist you all. We know that we're in the midst of the FAFSA season, and we encourage you and your students and their families to call our help desk. We can be reached by phone and also by text at 334-316-6155 on weekdays during business hours. So again, that number 334-316-6155. Students can reach us by phone and by text. So we do encourage that you share this number and that even yourself, you can feel free to give us a call. And lastly, we ask that you all always stay connected. If you find that you have any questions, please feel free to give us a call. And you can find us at alabamagoestocollege.org, or you can email us at algoestocollege@alabamapossible.org. Again, Julie, thank you so much for sharing this information with us today. And we hope that everybody has an enjoyable rest of their week. Thanks so much for participating.